On today's episode of the show, I'm really excited to be joined by Brentyn Hall. I got to know Brentyn during his time at Laurier, where he studied BBA and was a part of our football team for 5 years. But we're not here to talk about football today. I'm bringing Brentyn on the show because I think he has an amazing perspective on a lot of the questions that people are asking right now. And he started this amazing initiative to kind of help create change in his community around social justice. So, Brentyn, welcome to the show.
You.
So today we're here to talk about an issue that I think a lot of locker rooms are dealing with right now, and coaches and players are looking to find ways to help their community. And me, myself as a coach, I'm looking for ways to better support my players and my program so that we can help create positive change in the community. So as a former athlete and as someone who's been a part of teams and locker rooms, your whole life, what would your advice to coaches be, or as an athlete, what would you say to other athletes during this time to try and help support each other and create positive change in our community around social justice?
Yeah, so let me first break it down by the community as a whole. So the first thing I would talk about is it's kind of a two-part answer. And the first thing is accountability. So the first thing is recognizing that there are issues out there and they need to be addressed, right? So from a personal level, hold yourself accountable to understand what those issues are and to really appreciate where those issues came from and why we're still experiencing those issues today. And so once we hold ourselves accountable and understand that there is a need to learn more and there's a need to understand what is really going on today with the racial and social injustice towards the Black community, but we need to educate ourselves. We need to educate ourselves, and it needs to be in a way that we're using reliable sources, right? So once we understand that we need to be educated, it is then the next step is to go out and educate yourself through maybe the many resources that you're seeing being shared right now on social media. Maybe it's talking to your Black friend about his perspective or her perspective and their issues and their experiences that they've had throughout their life. And then the next thing I would talk about is to support the Black community as a whole. So when I talk about support, it's not necessarily just financially. It would be great, financially to support local Black businesses or Black businesses in general, but also, volunteering your time, your energy, to teach young, underprivileged Black individuals valuable life skills that they may not have got due to the situation that they're raised into, their society and their community that they were born into, right? They're automatically put to a disadvantage, right? So supporting these communities and supporting them with finances, your time, any skills that you can teach them. So that brings me to my next point when we're talking specifically within the locker room or for players, for coaches. One thing that I think would be amazing is for each team to actually have a Black Players Association. So if we have a Black coach who's comfortable leading that charge, I think that is best case scenario. Now, there's also going to be many players on the team that are also going to be very suitable to lead the charge in that. But that would be something that would be great to see, where the Black community within the team can come together and meet on issues that they're experiencing on campus, issues that they're experiencing within football or within sports, issues they're experiencing within their communities back home. And then they can talk about ways that they can upbring the community, and the coaches will be on board to support that. And the players will be supported by the coaches and ultimately lead to a supportive group who can support each other and ultimately lead change.
Yeah, I think it's so important right now, like you said, that first acknowledgement that, hey, there is something here that's been here for a long time, whether you're on this side of the border or not. And I think for a long time, that's gone either undiscussed or not discussed enough in the locker room. And I see now, and I'm talking to some of our players and talking to, other people within the football world. They're blown away by the conversations that they're having that they've never had before with the struggles of the players in their own community. And then that's creating, I think, that drive to create change. And that's kind of, our next topic here. And obviously, I think it takes a certain level of learning and education yourself to really appreciate the problem, which was kind of your second point there. And once you appreciate the problem, I hope, and what I see in our community and the communities I'm a part of, is now there's this driving force that we want to be a part of change. And I know a lot of coaches I talk to, particularly coaches like myself who are white, who have not lived through these things, and who want to be better allies for our Black communities. They're asking, okay, what can we do right now? What can we do in the future? And the points you bring up about whether it's your money or your time or your willingness to have a conversation or your willingness to help give back to those Black communities is so crucial. So I know a lot of people like myself, whether they're coaches, community members, friends, parents, just concerned citizens, are looking for ways to get involved and help our Black communities right now and in the future. You've started an amazing initiative, which is something that I think a lot of people can benefit from knowing about and learning more about, as a way to get involved and be a part of the solution, not just recognizing the problem, but actively being a part of the solution. So talk to us about your I Am George Floyd initiative and how people can help and get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've created this I Am George Floyd initiative, which is essentially selling T-shirts, sweaters, and gear online. And it's 100% of the proceeds are going toward the CCLA, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. So essentially, the statements read, I am George Floyd, or I am George Floyd's teammate, I am George Floyd's colleague, I am George Floyd's neighbor, et cetera, et cetera. And George Floyd in this situation, in this statement, symbolizes the millions of Black people around the world who have and continue to experience social injustice simply due to the color of their skin. When George Floyd was murdered, George Floyd could have just as easily been any other Black person in that day, essentially, because George Floyd was simply attacked by the color of his skin. It didn't matter his education level. It didn't matter on his societal status. It didn't matter where he worked. It didn't matter what he's done. He was treated in a specific way, specifically because of the color of his skin. So I Am George Floyd symbolizes that anybody, due to the color of their skin, could have found themselves in that exact situation. Which is very unfortunate, and which is why we need to change the whole narrative around racial injustice.
Yeah, and it's something that, as soon as I think Coach Fald shared it, and I messaged you right away about getting involved, I think it's a great example to athletes and coaches that, again, it starts with education, but then what we need is for people to follow through and give their time, energy, financially in this case, to help kind of change the system and create a new system that puts everybody in a fair position. And we have a lot of work to do, and I think we have a lot of work to do on this side of the border as well as across the world. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on in terms of what you're doing and how people can get involved and help?
Well, one thing I'll say is, in terms of people getting in and wanting to help and holding themselves accountable and wanting to learn, is for a lot of people, this whole process is going to be uncomfortable, right? And it should be uncomfortable, especially for white people who normally didn't pay any attention to this issue because they didn't perceive it as what they are perceiving it today due to a lack of education, right? So when people say they're not comfortable talking about this issue, it's a fair statement, right? Because we have to remember that when slavery was instituted over 400 years ago, it was set up by the system and to protect the the white people essentially. And when a slave would fall out of line, what would happen is you would call the system to put that slave back in line, right? And we're seeing that same system up to today, as we can see with the same thing which happened with George Floyd is, or even with in Central Park with the woman who called 911 on the black guy who was asking her to leash her dog. What happened in that situation was, well, let me call on the system to help me with my issue, right? Because that's the default. That's essentially the default. So you probably often heard that the system is actually working perfectly the way it was designed. So it is working perfectly the way it is designed, and that is the issue right there in itself, right? So that's why we talk about dismantling the system, dismantling the way that we think about all these issues, dismantling the societal barriers that have been put in place back years ago, which are still in place, which ultimately disadvantage the Black community. So when we talk about having these conversations, yes, it's going to feel maybe uncomfortable having these conversations, but the conversations that need to be had. And once we hold ourselves accountable and we want to learn and we want to take steps forward to fix the issue and work together to dismantle the system and build a new system, the sooner that we can get to a more just society where we can upbring Black people, Asian people, Latino people, all people can work together with a system which will benefit all.
And I think it's so important, again, that emphasis on, this isn't an easy conversation for anyone to have, right? But again, because so many people have spent their lives not talking about it, and now it's in front of us and in its true form, it's much harder to deny, right? And I think that, so I think for people listening that go, man, like this, I agree with what's going on, but I haven't been as supportive as I'd like to be, or I haven't ever had that difficult conversation with a player, or I've never asked a player about their experience, and do they feel safe and accepted on this team, or in this locker room or in this position group. I think what everyone who's in that situation now, which is a huge group of people, you have the power to be a part of the positive change that is hopefully, and I believe that is coming through initiatives such as the one that you're working with, Brentyn, and whether it's a coach or a parent or any community member. I think your points around, you have to first accept that there is a problem here and take some onus for yourself to educate yourself however you can. And then you have to recognize, okay, my education and my support and my empathy is part of the first step, but that's not the end of the line. It's not for someone else to solve. It's for all of us to come together and find a way to solve. So I really appreciate your time, and I have a ton of respect for what you're doing. And I've got my 2 shirts ordered. We're going to be sharing the website. Is there anything you want to tell people just about, hey, this is where you can find it, this is how you can get a part of what you're doing, and people can go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can check out the website at iamgeorgefloyd.ca. And yeah, you can check out the t-shirts, the sweaters. You can also simply just donate if you don't want to get any apparel, which is fine. So again, all the proceeds are going to the ACLU and the CCLA. And those are both organizations that are leading extremely important programs to rectify social justice within our society. So, it's a great cause, and your support, anything helps. So I appreciate it. And thank you for doing your part, because at the end of the day, change starts with you. So once again, thank you, Jax, for having me on. And thank you to everybody else out there that is supporting my initiative, but also doing their part to upbring the Black community and work towards a better society.
And the kind of the last thing I'll say is, for all the players out there or coaches who want to be more involved, this is such a good example of somebody who is trying to create change and was brave enough to start their not just not just, give their support or donate yourself, but start your own initiative. And I think that more and more people are starting to do that. And that's a huge part of, that empowerment is such a huge part of what's going to help us get this situation better for everybody. So thanks for your time, Brentyn. And I'll make sure that I post the website link and everything in the notes for this episode. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.